Hello, my lovelies. I know not everyone is thinking about Valentine's Day quite yet, but because I've been thinking about how often we miss the mark with gift giving on days like that because we don't know enough about the person we're buying for, especially on holidays like Valentine's Day, and because the world tells us what the best gifts are. Not understanding that some personalities and love languages want anything but what is traditionally marketed as the perfect gift for the holiday. So let's look into what people really want for this holiday of love based on personalities and love languages. For those who are new to the podcast, when I talk about personalities, I use the DISC personality model of behavior and refer to people as D or driven, I or inspired, S or supportive, and C or cautious. And if you're not familiar with the 5 love languages, those are acts of service, physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, and gifts. You can find the links to personality assessments and love languages in the show notes. So once you start to understand personalities and love languages, you'll see how doing just a bit of research can be the difference between a Valentine's Day that sucks and one that your person will remember for a lifetime. We'll be going through each of the love languages for each personality type, so get ready because we're going to dive in. Here we go. So we're going to start, as always, with the driven personality. And anyone who has someone with this personality type in their life knows full well that they are not one for chocolates and roses unless they love one or both of those things. I can only imagine how many people have spent time and effort to create a romantic Valentine's Day scenario for their driven partner, only to have it go the absolute opposite way they thought it was going to. You know, depending on the relationship, the D recipient may go along with the gift, but it's usually apparent this is not what they wanted, and they're only humoring the gift giver. So let me suggest some things that may seem ridiculous to those who are not driven personalities, but will thrill the D personality if you know them well. We're going to start off with each of the love languages. First, we're going to do acts of service. There are a couple of ways to approach doing something for a driven personality. The first is trying to figure out yourself. You know, you can figure it all out yourself, but I can tell you for sure that if you do something for the D personality and it's not something they have prioritized, they are not going to appreciate it. So before you invest your precious time into doing a task for the driven personality, make sure you know it's something that they will appreciate. And if you don't know what that is, ask them. Because if you clean out the garage when what they really want is for somebody to help them clean the house, you will not get the reaction you're going for. It's really not hard to do. Just listen to the jobs they complain about around the house and offer to do it, or listen to what they say needs to be done and offer to do that. Help them do it. Hire someone to do it and see how that goes. You can also do something they don't like doing while they do something they do like doing. For example, my mom is a high D. She had always enjoyed doing yard work. My brother and I detested it. So on the weekends that there was a lot of yard work to do, my brother and I would offer to clean, do the laundry, and cook so we could avoid the yard work and take that off our mom's plate. And she loved that. And one day my father said to my mom that it was ridiculous that they were outside doing all the yard work when they had 2 teenagers that were perfectly capable of doing it themselves. And my mom said that we were doing things that reduced her workload so she could do the things that she liked to do. And that was good enough for her. So we were doing what she really wanted, and it was a win-win situation for everybody. So moving on to physical touch. Unlike other personality types, physical touch will not mean cuddling and snuggling for the D personality. In fact, I would venture that a driven personality who has physical touch as a love language is a very rare unicorn indeed. Because they're such fast movers, a driven personality that wants physical touch will want a quick hug, a pat on the back, and maybe a supportive hand on the shoulder. Just don't leave it there for too long. These are the people that don't want an hour massage. However, a quick foot massage might be exactly what they need. But please ask first, because if that's not their thing, they will not hesitate to tell you. And asking avoids hurt feelings later. Now, with words of affirmation, nearly every driven woman I know has a very different view of words of affirmation because they tend to be so to the point. They don't want to hear fluffy, flowery, soft words about them. If you're friends with a group of these women, they will call each other witches or worse. But there's more love in those terms than you can imagine. And when you see it, it's really a beautiful thing. But be sure that you're far enough into their inner circle before you start using that language yourself. Or you may find yourself on the wrong end of a tongue lashing the likes of which you've never seen. They are the kind of people who appreciate a card that makes them laugh out loud much more than they do one that's flowery. And the same goes for whatever note you might write on the inside. Several couples I know that have a driven partner take great delight in trolling one another. If you need some inspiration for that, do yourself the favor of following mom chats and dad chats on your preferred social media platform. Mom chats is an expert troller, and dad chats rolls with it in the best way. And they troll each other. So it's an equal opportunity thing, and it's very lighthearted. So I think you'll really enjoy that to get some inspiration. Moving on to quality time. Quality time with a driven person is not what we traditionally think of with quality time. For several of my driven women friends, one of their favorite ways of spending quality time is talking about business and big life goals. They hate networking at business conferences and making small talk, but engage them in a deeper conversation about goals, dreams, and building something of substance, and you are going to see them light up. Now, on a more personal level, while they may not be one for icebreaker types of activities, they can be persuaded to do activities they see as valuable to build their business, to get in shape, or something else that they appreciate. I have one driven friend who loves Broadway, and she loves show tunes. So going to a performance for her is a great way to spend quality time because she's doing something she likes. She's entertained, but she doesn't have to talk too much. So finally, we have gifts. And gifts is tricky because the D personality is quite practical. So please do not get them flowers or candy, like I said before, unless you know for sure and for certain that's what they want. Sentimentality is in short supply with the driven personality. So something you may think is sweet often will elicit head shaking and eye rolling as soon as you're out of sight of the D person. The key with any gift giving success is to listen to the person when they say it would be nice to have something. This is one of the personalities you could actually buy a vacuum sweeper and have them be happy if that's something they want. The key is to ask them questions and get as much information as you can. But if you want it to be a surprise, you better be asking about several different things because the driven person is quite perceptive and they will figure out what you're doing much faster than you might think. Moving on to the I personality, they really just want to have fun. So let's talk about that. Acts of service for the I personality. Honestly, I know this one so well because this is me. My husband is so thoughtful and loving, but I remember in our early years when he would go all out for something like Valentine's Day and get me flowers and chocolates and a very sweet card. And I remember thinking that was nice, but I would be just as happy if he did a load of laundry or mopped the kitchen floor for me. And I meant that. My oldest is very similar to me in this way. And once when my children were being awful, I sent them upstairs to their rooms. And I heard the oldest telling his younger brothers, just clean up your room and she'll forgive you. And he was not wrong. Listen, when it comes to an I personality, cook dinner and clean it up. Oh, Do a load of laundry, vacuum, mop. Any of these things are going to delight an I personality. And that's what my kids did for me regularly on occasions like Valentine's Day, my birthday, Mother's Day. And it was a win win when they were young, even young adults, because it didn't cost them anything. And it made me so happy. Seriously, if you have an inspired person in your life whose love language is acts of service, think about the things they complain about doing and do it for them and watch them light up. Trust me, it's pretty cool. Now, on physical touch, for the I person who loves physical touch, hugs are essential. They don't have to be long, lingering hugs, but a good solid hug can keep them going in the worst of times, as does a shoulder massage or a back rub given without strings attached, if you get my drift. Because they tend to be more active, a long snuggle isn't necessarily what the inspired person is looking for, but a short hand-holding session while walking or sitting at a movie can be exactly what the I personality needs to fill that love bucket and feel connected. Even sitting at a restaurant with your shoes touching can make an impact for the I person who appreciates physical touch. And if you're imaginative and make it fun, all the better. So, moving on to words of affirmation, the I person generally loves recognition. But when their love language is words of affirmation, those words are like food to a starving person. And most of the time, it doesn't matter what you recognize them for, but they particularly love it when you tell them they made something fun, easy, or more pleasant than expected. Do it in front of someone they love and or respect, and you will have a loyal friend for life. They also appreciate any kind of heartfelt note, such as a text, private message, or note that says, and this is coming, honestly, this is coming from the woman who has all kinds of kid art and greeting cards on her office walls because it just makes me happy. Just saying. Moving on to quality time. It may seem like all inspired personalities have quality time as a love language because they enjoy spending time with people and would rather be with people than be alone most of the time. But like words of affirmation, quality time for an I person with this love language is like breathing. They live for gatherings, retreats, vacations, and the like, so they can spend time with those they love. And it will be fun for everyone if they have anything to say about it. They love seeing people, and it fills their soul like nothing else. These are the people who keep coming back to conferences when they don't really seem to be making any progress in their business or career. And for them, being around others in their profession and making connections is the point of those functions for them. And I'm one of those people. One of my mentors has hosted retreats in the past, and I rarely get much work done. And I've been to every one of them. But I make great friends every time I go. And when I get back from the retreat, I am more inspired to get work done than ever. And recently I did a smaller weekend with a couple of online entrepreneur friends, and we made a pact to help each other get as much done during our daytime work hours as possible so we could have fun in the evenings. And we all came away with so much done, and the evenings were so much fun. And all we really did was go out to dinner and have some chats and just kind of chill out with one another. And I am telling you, I would do that again in a heartbeat. Moving on to gifts. If this is an I personality's love language, you and the entire world are going to know when you've done it right because they are going to praise the heck out of you. And they're going to tell everyone they meet about your gift. If you take the time to give them something they've mentioned that they like, it will delight them like a child. And the delight will be absolutely genuine. Knowing that someone thought about the gift that they received is delightful. And every time the inspired person looks at the gift, they will remember you, and they will remember you with genuine gratitude and affection. One year for our anniversary, my husband offered to get me a gift that might have infuriated some people, but for me it was a delight. And what was that? Going back to the vacuum thing, it was a Roomba that empties itself. While I don't recommend buying this out of the blue, it was a great gift for me for several reasons. First, we have 2 black dogs that shed a ton in the spring and the early summer, and I am not a fan of vacuuming. So I can vacuum every day without getting the vacuum out. Second, this gift is an act of service in 2 ways: by eliminating frequent vacuuming and by emptying itself into an easy to change and mess-free bag. Third, because it has a specific map of the house, it encourages me to keep the house free of clutter so that we can keep the floors clean. So as soon as I'm done recording this podcast, I have some things that have been sitting on the floor for a while, and I'm going to clean them up so I can start doing this stuff again. And so all the wins there for a gift that just made me so very, very happy. Now, moving on to the S personality. This is usually your typical sentimental person, which makes gift giving so easy in some ways because no matter what you do, they will be gracious, kind, and appreciative most of the time because they love their people and they want them to be happy, even if the gift you give them isn't one of their love languages. Out of balance, you may get a sarcastic or passive-aggressive remark that can sting a little bit, but most of the time, they're going to be very gracious. Now, if an S person has acts of service as their love language, this one can actually be tricky because the supportive person is so used to doing things for other people, they may find it very difficult to receive, even if they love what the person is doing for them. Because they tend to be overgivers and they find it easy to deflect from receiving because they don't want anyone to go out of their way for them. Honestly, I have looked at friends and told them to stop pushing away their blessings because they didn't realize how much people wanted to help them. Instead, they would refuse the help, not realizing how heartbreaking it was for the giver who offered help or, offered to do something nice for the supportive person, only to have it diminished by having the receiver say that they shouldn't have done it. If you are a supportive person, and especially if you're a person of faith, I want you to listen to me. Learn to be a gracious receiver. That actually goes for all personality types. Learn to be a gracious receiver of everything, from compliments to help, because it's a way that you can help people get to heaven if you're a person of faith, or at least help other people become better people. Learning to say thank you when help is offered is a skill anyone can develop. So moving on to physical touch. The S personality is the person that loves the snuggles. They love those long and lingering moments of holding hands forever, even when their hands are sweaty. And they will hold a sleeping child for hours because it gives them such joy. My mother-in-law was such a person. And while she was raised in an era where she rarely showed physical affection for her grown children, nothing made her happier than pouring that affection into her grandchildren and great-grandchildren for the 30 years I knew her. She loved holding babies, playing with toddlers on her lap, and getting hugs from her older grandchildren, no matter how old they were. And it was a delight to see her love tank get filled from the many grandchildren and great-grandchildren she had, which numbered over 50 by the time she passed away in her 90s. And if you know a supportive person who has this love language and those long snuggles are not your thing, please know that frequency and playfulness can substitute for length of time. So act accordingly. I know couples that pat each other on the behind nearly every time one of them walks by. I know others that scare the dickens out of each other regularly and then hug it out laughing at themselves and each other. Now, if your supportive person doesn't like being scared, please don't try the jump scare option because it's not going to end well for you. Says the woman who launched a book across the room at a friend who scared me in my dorm room once while I was studying with my door open and just For those of you who wonder why in the world my door was open, it was a different time, y'all, and most of us left our doors open in the evening, and I happened to have my back to the door. He scared me. I launched the book, and I nearly hit him. I'm glad I didn't, but it was crazy. So anyway, moving on to words of affirmation. Like the I personality, the S personality in general appreciates words of affirmation. The difference between the two is that the I personality is very comfortable with public praise, but the S personality shrinks from that and is often quite uncomfortable with it. If you know a supportive personality whose love language is words of affirmation, find something to appreciate about them and tell them in a card, in a quick conversation, or you can brag on them just a little bit to someone that they love and or respect, which is very different for them than saying the words to them in front of that person, because it puts them in the spotlight and they prefer to be spotlight adjacent rather than squarely in it. In the spotlight, they could very well deflect the compliments and attempt to put the spotlight on someone else. But I promise you, it will hit its mark, especially if you let them know how much you appreciate them by talking to someone else. It also is a really good idea to let them know they're appreciated without a bunch of fanfare, because that is not something that they want. Again, as an example, if you're in a lunch meeting and a supportive person has ordered the lunch to suit all the dietary needs, and you can bet they thought of all the dietary needs because that's who they are, and that's helped the meeting to go better, you can mention that whoever did that made a great choice for lunch, or as you're walking out of the meeting, say to the supportive person that you appreciate the time and effort they put into helping the meeting run smoothly. That is a great way to acknowledge the supportive personality. That way you don't embarrass them, but you let them know that you see and appreciate their efforts, and they will take pride in duplicating that success every time after as well. Now, for quality time, again, like the I personality, the S personality loves spending time with their people. But while the I personality has the philosophy of the more the merrier, the S person leans more toward the idea that the greatest gift you can give someone is your one-on-one time. So doing that type of one-on-one experience or a small group experience is much more their jam. As a gift, a smaller family gathering in a favorite familiar place that everyone can hang out for a while is the best gift ever for a supportive personality. A quiet date night can also be one of the greatest gifts you can give an S personality, but which is much better than a night of dinner and dancing. That quiet dinner with a long walk afterwards is totally the way to go. When it comes to actual gifts, a supportive person will always appreciate the gift. And I've seen S personalities make as much fuss over a rock given by a child as a designer handbag given by an adult, or something of, similar monetary value. These are the people that show gratitude for white puffy dandelions that children hand them. But when you really connect with something they want, you'll see a level of appreciation that will touch the heart of the most jaded person. And it might even come with a few tears. So be prepared in advance for that. For example, I'm not one for wearing a lot of jewelry, but I have a few pieces I absolutely adore. One is a bracelet that my oldest and his wife gave me that had the birthstones of my favorite people on it with one extra. And that's when they announced that they were expecting their second child. Even if I don't wear the bracelet that often, every time I see it or I see the box that it came in, it makes me so very happy. And that's how the S personality feels about gifts. So a little thought really does go a long way. For the C personality, it behooves you to be a good gift giver if you're going to give a gift to the C personality. These are people who like things done right. So something that is haphazard is likely to be passed along, regifted, or thrown away. Not because the C personality doesn't love or like the giver, but because the C personality is one of the best at surrounding themselves with things that bring them joy and getting rid of things that don't. Although they may struggle a bit if the items they no longer want are attached to someone that they love dearly, they're still going to put it out of sight. Just so you understand that. So if acts of service is the primary love language of the cautious personality, you better make sure that if you're going to do something for them, that it's something they want someone else to do. And that you can do it to the standards of the C personality, because those standards are high. This is in no way a criticism of the C personality. It's merely to illustrate that if you want the C person to be happy, know the level of work that they expect. It's often why the C personality would rather do something themselves than ask for help, even if acts of service is their love language. And if you work in tandem with them, it is best to match their level of excellence as much as you can. That you do that, and that's how you win the day. While I'm going to share a Christmas story with you rather than a Valentine's Day one, it truly illustrates what I mean. In 2022, my sister-in-law, who has a large amount of C in her personality, had to have surgery during the holiday season. And she was really struggling because she loves the holidays and spends a lot of time making her home beautiful, buying and wrapping gifts, making the most exquisite Christmas cookies, in addition to all the activities she does throughout the season. She keeps very busy during that season. Because of her surgery, she couldn't do any of these things to her normal standards. And I wanted to help her, but I knew the way I do things and the way she does things are very different. So I called and asked what was stressing her the most, because I knew she was stressing about it. At that time, it was getting her tree up. She's very particular about how she decorates. Her tree is beautiful, by the way. And while her husband was willing to help her, he does not have the same eye for detail that she has. So with my husband's permission and his blessing, I offered her his very detailed services to help put her tree up at a convenient time for her. She said yes, because she knew his detail orientation matched hers, and that he would decorate the tree exactly the way she wanted. I also offered to bring dinner, something I could do well, and something I knew that she was not able to do easily, because they were eating out more and things like that. So I could bring her a home-cooked meal. I know it was hard for her to say yes, but we spent an evening setting the tree up as close as we could to her standards with her direction. It was a fun night for my husband and me, and hopefully them. And it gave our sister-in-law a tree that she could enjoy looking at, plus a good meal. And if you question how much that matters to a C personality, my sister-in-law mentioned it a year later because she got to put her own tree up. And she was still grateful for our help the year before, even though I'd pretty much forgotten about it, because while it was a nice time, it's something I would do again and again. So it wasn't the standout act of service to me that it was to her. Now, moving on to physical touch, I know it may sound like I'm being rude when I keep mentioning that when you're doing things right with the C personality, that things need to be right. But honestly, I'm not being rude. And because I know a lot of C personalities, and I will tell you, it applies to physical touch with the cautious personality too. Find out what kind of touch they like. For my husband, nearly any type of physical touch is okay. We often hold hands, or I hold his arm while we walk. If we're sleeping, we might be back to back, or I might have my leg laying over his body. All of those things work. But for some C personalities, they may not like one of those things. And when they tell you what they don't like, it might seem like they're rejecting you, but they're actually just rejecting the type of touch you're offering. So ask them what they want. They might actually be pleasantly surprised that you asked, and you may end up with an even better relationship because of it. Now, when a C personality has words of affirmation as love language, specifics matter. For example, if they create a report and you want to let them know they did a great job, find something specific to compliment them about, such as the way you structured this report made it so easy to follow and understand the data. Those types of details matter to the C personality. On a more personal note, if you compliment someone for what they do around the house, phrases like the house or the yard looks great fall short. You're much better to say, wow, I love the look of the grass after you cut it. It's so precise. Or coming home to a clean and organized home is one of the highlights of my day. Thank you so much for taking great care of our home. To some personality types, that sounds like the same thing. But to the C personality type, they are completely different, and paying attention can make all the difference to them. So then if you're buying a card for the C personality, know that those words matter to them. And the more specifically they can apply those words to themselves, the better you're going to hit the mark as a gift giver. Quality time and free time are not always the same thing to a cautious personality. C personalities often struggle with free time because there's always something they could be doing. And even their free time is best spent doing something. These are people who, if they love sports, they know the rules, and often more statistics than you can imagine. If they love movies, they're bound to know about most, if not all, of the actors in the film or the directors. And they enjoy telling you about those things in proper timing. And if you're willing to listen, no matter what activity you do with a C personality, you are bound to learn something. So pay attention. If you want to give a gift to a cautious person with this love language, do something they like to do. And if you can help them learn something in the process, even better. An example of this would be that if the person loves animals, giving them a small group or personal behind the scenes encounter with an animal that they love is a gem of a gift. Taking them to a concert, if they're a music lover, is a great gift, as is going to a special exhibit where they can learn about history or some other subject that they're interested in. That will always work. As is a book or an audio book, if that's their thing, about a subject that lets them deep dive into an area of personal interest. Trust me, what looks like school to some people is a joy for the C personality with subjects they love. Now, as far as gifts go, gifts for the C personality, it's like everything else. What it is matters. I know I mentioned my sister-in-law a lot, but we have decades of material to talk about, and this is no exception. We've had several conversations about gift giving, and her philosophy is that she prefers to make sure that the outside of the gift looks as good as what's inside. I always say that while my gift is usually in a bag that I've often reused, I make sure the quality of the gift outshines the wrapping. We both love to give gifts. We both love to delight the recipient, but our wrapping ideas are different, and we're both okay with that. So if you get a gift from a C personality, pay attention to the wrapping because they did. And if you're giving a gift to the cautious person, make it as appealing as you can, even if you put it in a reused bag. I always use brand new tissue paper because it looks prettier. It's something as simple as that. So there you have it. Well, I haven't covered everything because honestly, I could talk about this for hours. And I would love to do that with different personality types at some point. So maybe that's a show or a series for another day. But if you want to give yourself or someone else a great Valentine's gift, consider the book, The Self-Love Journal for Women. It's a book filled with prompts and practices to grow your self-worth, self-care, and self-acceptance. Easy for me to say, right? And starting in February, I'm going to be running a simple free challenge to walk women through the prompts and the exercises so that they can have the most loving 2024 possible. I've included a link to purchase the book in several places. You can find the link in the show notes. It will be pinned to the top of the feed on the Moving Toward Better Facebook page. And I will put it into the on the Moving Toward Better website probably in the next week or so. So it's going to be a fun challenge that will hopefully help all of us learn to care for ourselves better and others as well. So if you haven't yet, also go to the Moving Toward Better website, hit that Take Your Assessment button, and after you do, schedule your personalized personality strategy session. While you're there, make sure you join the email community for all the good things to come. Love you, and see you next time. At Moving Toward Better, it's our mission to help you unlock a fantastic life, powered by what's unique and authentically you. To learn how we can help you in your quest, head over to movingtowardbetter.com to check it out, or use the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening, thanks for being you, and have a great day. Love you all.